The crowd outside Rideau Hall didn't know what to make of it at first. Queen Camilla emerged from the sleek black Bentley dressed in her usual royal elegance. Deep green silk cloak, heels that barely made a sound, posture regal. But it wasn't the outfit that set off alarm bells. It was the gloves. Thick ash gray leather, completely out of place for the weather. The kind of gloves you'd wear in a snowstorm, not in mild Canadian autumn. But it wasn't the material that shocked people. It was the symbol stitched into them. Thorny roses tangled around a glinting 8-pointed star. No one said a word, not right away, but among those who noticed, some gasped. Some exchanged worried glances, and one person, Princess Anne, froze the moment her eyes landed on Camilla's hands. To the uninformed, the symbol meant nothing, just some decorative embroidery, maybe a nod to British heritage. But for Anne, it was a flashing siren. She had seen that symbol in classified MI5 reports. The Order of the Cloak, a secretive organization tied to shady meetings in Geneva, whispers of political sabotage, and anti-monarchist ideology. And now, those gloves were being flaunted in front of international press on Camilla's hands. Anne didn't panic, she didn't confront, she observed. Inside Rideau Hall, chandeliers glittered above a room full of forced smiles and uneasy toasts. The usual pleasantries about diplomacy and goodwill filled the air, but under the surface, something sharp pulsed. Camilla walked like a queen, smiled like a duchess, and kept those gloves on like armor. Even when she adjusted her scarf, she made sure the embroidered roses caught the light. Every move seemed calculated, and suspicion wasn't rooted in paranoia. She remembered a line from a security briefing years ago: "The order doesn't speak, it signals." And now, Camilla wasn't just wearing gloves, she was performing with them. Back in the royal guest quarters, Anne met with Sir Edward Langley, the only man she trusted enough to tell. A former MI5 operative turned royal advisor, Langley had a face like stone and eyes that missed nothing. Anne dropped a dossier on the table. "I need facts, not theories. I want to know why she's wearing that symbol." Langley opened it calmly. His finger stopped on an old photograph. 1987, a meeting in Zurich. The same symbol appeared on a banner behind the delegates. "Princess," he said carefully, "you don't wear this by mistake. But Camilla, she's always calculated, not reckless. There might be more going on here." But Anne shook her head. "Don't believe in coincidences." The next day, at the Dominion Arboretum, Camilla wore the gloves again. This time, she shook hands with a Canadian diplomat, Pierre Dubois. As their hands touched, Anne saw it. Camilla subtly turned her wrist, letting the rose embroidery brush against Dubois' skin. A gesture so quick, so smooth, it would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. But not Anne. She'd seen the exact same thing the day before with another official. Same motion, same positioning, always subtle, always controlled. This wasn't a quirk, this was a code. And Dubois? His gloves had a similar pattern, barely visible, but there, a less elaborate version of Camilla's. Anne's gut twisted. She wasn't watching random handshakes, she was witnessing a network. Later that night, something happened that made Anne's suspicions grow into full-blown dread. A shadow moved through the hallway of the guest house. A man in a black coat and cap entered Camilla's room, briefcase in hand. No one recognized him, no staff badge, no escort, and yet Camilla let him in. No questions, no guards alerted. Anne watched from the shadows, pulse racing. Was this the contact, the one these silent handshakes were leading to? Something inside her snapped. This wasn't a symbol anymore, it was a warning. Anne didn't sleep. The image of that man slipping into Camilla's room kept replaying in her head like a broken record. She had spent a lifetime protecting the crown, sacrificing comfort for duty, but nothing had ever felt this off. This wasn't about personal drama or court gossip. It was something deeper, darker. By morning, the press had started to bite. Photos of Camilla's gloves were all over the tabloids. "Duchess of Cornwall's curious statement in silk and leather," read one headline. A Canadian blog went further. "Is the Queen secretly signaling a forgotten order?" Anne paced her room, fingers gripping a steaming cup of tea she hadn't touched. The silence from the palace was deafening. She couldn't let this spiral. So she made a decision. Charles needed to hear the truth. At least, what she suspected. In a quiet room lined with paintings of Canada's former Governor General, she found him sitting at a polished oak table, rubbing his temples as if trying to push away the pressure building around him. "Brother," she began, voice low. "There's something wrong." Charles didn't look up. "I know what you're going to say. Do you?" Her tone sharpened. I don't think you see it. She's not just making fashion choices. Those gloves, they mean something. The handshakes, the symbols, and that man last night." Charles raised a hand. "Stop." The room fell still. Charles exhaled slowly. "Camilla's not well. She's been dealing with something. A skin condition. Rash, pain, sensitivity to cold. That man you saw, he's her private physician. She didn't want the public to know. She said the media would crucify her." Anne blinked. The words didn't land the way they should have. "So you knew? You knew and said nothing?" She begged me, said it was temporary, that the gloves would avoid attention." Anne scoffed. "Well, they've done the opposite." Charles looked older than she'd ever seen him. "She didn't mean harm. She just didn't want to look weak." Anne sat across from him, heart pounding. "You still don't get it. This isn't just about hiding a rash. She's turning those gloves into a weapon, an unspoken challenge. Every change in color, every embroidered symbol, every extended handshake, she's building a wall and daring the world to question it." Just then, the door creaked open. Camilla stepped in. She wasn't dressed for diplomacy. No elegant cloak or pristine gloves, just a simple blouse, slacks, and bare hands, red, inflamed, and trembling slightly. Her eyes met Anne's, and for once, there was no smugness, just exhaustion. "You think I'm a traitor," she said softly, "that I've turned against the crown?" Anne didn't answer. Camilla continued, voice thin but steady. "Do you know what it's like to wake up and see your face splashed across forums, dissecting your gloves like they're code from a war manual? Every time I wear something, I'm accused. So I thought, if I'm going to be accused, I might as well own it." Anne narrowed her eyes. "So you mocked us?" "No," Camilla whispered. "I survived." The silence lingered. Charles looked away. Anne stood. "You should have trusted us. Instead, you played games with secrets." Camilla's jaw clenched. "I didn't want to be seen as weak." Anne didn't move for a long time. Finally, she turned to Charles. "This family doesn't need perfect. It needs truth. And right now, we're drowning in lies." She walked out, her heels echoing through the hall like a gavel falling. Camilla sat down slowly in the chair Anne had left behind. Her hands trembled as they rested on the table, exposed, no longer shielded by silk or leather. Charles reached for them, but Camilla pulled away. Rain tapped gently against the wide windows of the guest residence, soft and rhythmic like a lullaby meant for no one. Camilla stood alone before the mirror, sleeves rolled up, bare hands resting on the vanity. The rashes looked worse today, angrier, redder, edges beginning to crack beneath the skin. But what hurt more was not the pain. It was how exposed she felt. Naked, not in body, but in power. The gloves had been her armor, and now they sat folded in a drawer, mute and useless. Across the hall, Anne paced. The tension had shifted, no longer a battle of accusation, but something more fragile. She couldn't stop thinking about Camilla's trembling voice, about the bitterness layered under every word. Anne had always known palace life was a game of appearances, but she had underestimated just how deeply Camilla feared being seen as less than perfect. A knock interrupted the quiet. Charles entered Anne's room, shutting the door gently behind him. "She's refusing to attend the reception tonight," he said, running a hand through his graying hair. "The press won't stop. Every photo, every angle, it's gloves, gloves, gloves. They've twisted it into a conspiracy theory carnival." Anne didn't look at him. "Is it a lie if we let them believe it?" Charles sighed. "She's not the villain here. She's just scared." "And that fear nearly set fire to the whole family," Anne replied sharply. "But it didn't," he countered, "because you didn't let it." Later that evening, the reception hall buzzed with diplomats and foreign dignitaries, wine glasses clinking and laughter spilling in forced elegance. But the air remained heavy. Everyone had seen the headlines. Everyone had formed an opinion. And then Camilla walked in. Not in velvet or silk, no statement gloves, no signature smile. She wore a modest navy dress, her sleeves long and her hands bare. There was a moment of stunned silence. Conversations dipped, eyes turned, but Camilla held her head high, moving slowly across the room, nodding politely to each person she passed. Anne watched from the edge, uncertain. The crowd didn't whisper, at least not aloud. Some stared, a few winced at the state of her skin, but no one approached. Camilla stood near the fireplace alone, glass in hand, her fingers slightly curled inward. Her presence said what her mouth never had. "This is me. This is what I was hiding." Anne approached quietly. No guards, no aides, just the two of them, surrounded by strangers in expensive suits, pretending not to listen. "You still look ridiculous without gloves," Anne muttered, her voice dry. Camilla cracked a faint smile. "Then at least the mystery's over." "You're not weak for hiding," Anne said. "You're just human." Camilla looked at her with tired, searching eyes. "And you're not wrong for digging." They stood there side by side, not speaking more than they needed to. Across the room, Charles finally allowed himself a breath. The reception carried on. The music resumed, but something invisible had shifted. The next morning, the final public event unfolded at a veterans memorial. The wind carried a chill, but Camilla again chose no gloves. Her hands bore every mark and scar in full view of cameras, of crowds, of history itself. She laid a wreath, bowed her head, and stood silently, not as a duchess protecting a reputation, but as a woman showing the truth. Back inside the car, away from the press, she looked at Anne seated beside her. "You still don't like me, do you?" Anne looked out the window. "No, but I finally understand you." Camilla smiled faintly and leaned back in her seat. Outside, the maple trees rustled. The gloves remained behind, relics of fear, masks now discarded, and in their place, something real began to take root.